The Box Seat, brought to you by our stable of sponsors. Hi everyone, welcome to this edition of Your Box Seat. Yes, it's brought to you by our stable of sponsors. Michael, we shift focus now. We go to Alexandra Park. There's some excellent meetings coming up, and one of them is definitely on Friday night.
Yeah, hi Greg, you're right. Friday will be really good after we went Cambridge all the way to Invercargill, who I thought had a really great meeting on Sunday. Well done to them. Got good fields, interesting racing, and lots of stories out of them. And then you're right, we head to Alexandra Park for a meeting which I think is actually quite a bit bigger than we maybe expected. We get Just Believe again, his first start right-handed. The Tailor Mile is shaping as one of the great betting races in Australasia for this year so far. And while I would have liked 20 or 25 more horses in the overall card, Greg, there's 6 feature races or good juvenile races there to get our attention. It's a really important time for Alexandra Park, and they've got a month now where they have the chance to shine.
Yep, they definitely do, Michael. So what can you look forward to on your show? We do go back to Diamonds Day. It deserves a decent review. Rera made it 3 from 3. Stonewall had another day out. They've had an incredible run in the Deep South. The Nullarbor was run last Friday, and Catch a Wave did a very good job coming wide on Gloucester Park. Tailor Mile night preview. David Brick will drop in from Racing Queensland. He's got another invitation for a Kiwi to come to their carnival. And we'll have a look at some of the racing at Addington Raceway on Friday night too. So a busy show ahead. But we start with the Group 1 last Sunday. Yes, it was the Diamond Creek Farm Classic. Here is Rera doing what Rera does, that win and win nicely. Post-race, we'll hear from co-trainer Nathan Purdon about the unbeaten son of Always Be Mickey.
Got the chocolates out wider. Rera in front, always dreaming of danger. Rera and always dreaming. Rera just in front, always dreaming will make a lunge but missed. Rera completes the Kindergarten Stakes Diamond Creek Classic double, wins by a nose over Always Dreaming.
Nathan, you got another smart one in Rera, 3 from 3 now.
Yeah, he is. He's still got a bit to learn, Greg, but he's a really lovely horse.
Beautiful drive, Blair Orange yesterday, summed it up, and although he didn't get there by a big margin, there's so much more ahead of him, isn't there?
Yeah, that's right. He was just does what he has to do, and when he's in front, whether the race was another 200 metres, I'm sure he would have just held the margin throughout.
Not a dear purchase, $45,000. He's gone past the $100,000 mark now, so he really is doing a great job.
Yeah, he is. Just shows you they sort of can come a little bit from anywhere. He's well bred, but he's probably keeping the Always Be Mickey's going a little bit too. We've had a little bit of luck with him, so it's good for the side too.
What about now? What do you do with him? Do you get him back here to the barn and then make a decision?
I think so. We'll give him the next 3 days back at the farm here and work out how he gets through the trip. And at this stage, we're leaning towards giving him a bit of a break though.
Yeah, and that can change too, Michael, as we know, because there is another Group 1 now. Yes, the Welcome Stakes, back to Group 1, 17th of May, where a number of the horses out of that got the chocolates definitely. One that won't be going there is Better's Anvil. Spoke to co-trainer Amanda Telfer today. He's gone for a break. Always Dreaming, though, for Nathan Williamson will be making its way there. Good contest. There was an inquiry into the concluding stages there. Always Dreaming and Rera locking stays at the 20-metre mark. But when I spoke to Nathan Williamson today, he said, look, I had every chance to run past Rera. I reckon they could have gone another couple of 100 metres and I still wouldn't have got past. So the right decision made there. What we have found out of this race is Rera's pretty smart.
He is for an early season horse, Greg. I'm not still quite sure under the new way we have the seasons, whether the form in March and April is going to be any good by November and December when there's bigger races, even though that was a Group 1. So I guess we'll find out together about that. It's been okay. Like what we found with the young guns at Alexandra Park is a lot of the winners of those have gone on to be very good later season 2-year-olds, but of course the end of the 2-year-old season, Greg, is in Grand Prix days, 8 months away. So at the moment, he's top seed in the south Yeah, whether these horses turn out to be the best 2-year-olds a long way into the season, Greg, I don't know. But he looks very efficient. He looks a horse who does things right and well purchased for $45,000. And these days, Greg, it's incredibly common to see Blair Orange wearing those colours. It's been a gradual process with Mark and Natalie driving a lot less. And I would suggest it's going to be one we're going to see a lot more of.
Yep, Kennards, Breckens, Woodhams, and the Coles involved in this one. And he's definitely a horse that's only going to develop, and he still doesn't know anything. I spoke to Blair Orange about that a couple of times. Out of the race though, Michael, Ukraine just got a little bit ranked down on the inside there. He's still got a bit of learning to do for the Bob Butt barn. Got the chocolates, I think, with a better barrier draw. May have got a bit closer to them. It definitely goes to the Welcome Stakes. So yeah, there's still a bit to unfold out of that. And just on Rera, Michael, the Carabella family, which is really starting to shine through. So there's a bit of depth to the pedigree there as well.
Yeah, it's hard for those small mares. Carabella was quite a small horse, and often they leave small stock and people don't like them. So it is really hard for those families to shine if they become typical of the mare. But clearly he's a little bit bigger than that. So, yeah, Always Been Mickey would add to that, Greg. He's one of those stallions who adds a bit of leg to some of his progeny. So good to see Always Been Mickey having some good horses. He's had a good start to his career, but more so in Australia than here. And it seems that a couple of our bigger barns, obviously Team Telfer and Mark and Nathan here, have nice Always Been Mickeys in their team. So that's always a really good indication for them.
Speaking about Always Be Mickey, Alabar Southern Supremacy was another of the features. This at Group 2 level. Let's go back and have a look at it. Stonewall had the advantage of the barrier draws and dominated in front and in the trail. We'll hear from co-trainer Amanda Telfer about going back-to-back in the Supremacy. Of course, Ahoka Connor winning it last year.
Built for Glory though leads from Double Jeopardy. Built for Glory, Double Jeopardy. The stablemates locked in battle, but Built for Glory. Built for Glory has won from Double Jeopardy.
Mandy, not only success in the Alabar Supremacy for the second year in a row, but the Quinella to boot.
Yeah, it was pretty awesome to get the Quinella. Very happy with both boys' efforts.
Let's talk about the race. The barrier obviously played in your favour, but they still had to do it themselves, didn't they?
Yeah, they did. We had a little hiccup with Double Jeopardy leading into it. And I was really happy with him, but the other horse was super as well. So just an advantage of being up near the front, I suppose. The boys making the move to get trail and lead, and yeah, everything worked in our favour, really.
What happens with these two now? What do you do with them? Size stakes?
Yeah, look, they'll go to the size stakes heat. Everything going well. Yeah, just a little hiccup, but everything going well. They'll head to the size stakes and then the size final and then out. Yeah.
And they're doing a very good job. A high price purchase, Michael, $260,000 for Built for Glory, and the runner-up was Double Jeopardy, $185,000. So this is when Stonewall were really outlaying some serious money, and they've got a couple of serious 3-year-olds.
It's a funny race, isn't it? Because when you look at it ostensibly, and say you're not an in-depth harness racing punter, you would look at that and go, well, hold on, I don't understand. That Nathan Williamson horse was favourite for the Northern Derby and it couldn't run a place at Invercargill. How does that make sense? And that's two things. First of all, Nathan was on a hiding to nothing. I know you've spoken to him. We'll get his comments shortly. Once he drew outside the Stonewall stud pair, because they weren't going to hand to him. And his best case scenario after that, Greg, was sitting parked, where had he been there, he probably would have finished in about the same spot. So that's how the draws work at 3-year-old level when they can run really hard for a long way. You're not going to win those races very often, not unless you've got a really special 3-year-old. But these are good horses. And you put that same template over what's a indifferent 3-year-old crop. We've had a lot of different winners. I think Cold Chisel's a good horse, but I think Chase the Dream is a beatable horse, Greg. I think there's confidence now that any of these horses can be beat. You put those two horses who led in trail there in the same spots in the Derby at Addington in 6 or 8 months. There's no reason to think they can't do the same thing.
No.
So I think it's a 3-year-old crop, and we said this last week on the show, and it's come up as good timing, really in a state of flux. I don't know who the best is. the better horses tend to be in different stables, from Nathan's stable to Barry and Scotty to Mark and Nathan to this horse, or these horses, sorry. I think it's a really interesting time, and I think it's going to be a 3-year-old season, Greg, where we might see 6 different winners of 8 of our biggest races.
Yeah, and when I spoke to Nathan today, he was a little bit critical of his drive. He said he could have moved and sat part, but I totally agree with you. He would have finished in about the same spot. And he said to me something interesting, Michael. He said, if I was driving for someone else, I probably would have put the horse in the race, but I had my trainer's hat on and things haven't been perfect since he came back from the Northern Derby. Obviously, he won the first night, had a tough run in the Northern Derby, the trip back, all that sort of stuff. Things didn't basically pan out from the week before, and he didn't want to overdrive him, given he's still got the sire stakes at Addington next month. So I totally get that, and I know some punters won't, but when you train them as well, you're the one who's got to patch them back up the next week.
Look, I respect punters first, are always first for me when it comes to these things. But the market also had him as second favourite by the time they jumped, because it was a really tricky position. He wasn't going to cross them, and once he wasn't going to cross them, going forward early would have been suicidal for his chances in the race. So I wouldn't be too hard on yourself there, Nathan. Whatever he did, he was going to get beat, even though it's not much fun when you're watching. If you've had a decent bet and they run on like that, you've got to take those draws into account in even crops. If you have a standout horse, like Just Believe, we'll get to him later, is drawn outside Oscar Bonavina this week at Alexandra Park, but it isn't going to matter. But when you have them of comparable ability, then yeah, you've got to take that into your betting, and there's no point being angry and yelling at the television if you don't take that into your betting, because that's why shows like this and HRNZ's previews and the Herald talk so much about barrier draws, because they are so important at this level, Greg. Not for all races, but at this level. And the best example of that is going to be the Tailor Mile coming up on Friday night, because the 2 best horses in it, Gregory, might both have no chance after 800 metres.
Yeah, agreed. Okay, we go to a sire stakes heat next week, which Nathan said to me he will have Dreams Are Free at. I think he might end up being the best horse, but that's my opinion at this stage. Cold Chisel $3.50 for the final, this is. Chaser Dream $4, Built for Glory $5, Dreams Are Free $5, We Walk by Faith $5. Michael, I think the market is echoing exactly what you said. Double Jeopardy $13 and Hadron Collider, Paris and John $21. So yeah, it's in a state of flux, Michael.
One of the key factors, Gregory, is if he's going to be the best 3-year-old, he's going to need to develop gate speed, because you don't
But
win.
he led last week. He led the week before, sorry.
But he surged forward, didn't he? I don't think he's got that gate speed. And a lot of trainers don't train their horses for that. So that's going to be really interesting, because if he wants to go to Addington and beat the Purdens and beat the Purden Feelings and beat these the Telfers, Greg, he's only got one of him. He's got no help coming. So in those league trial scenarios,
that in December in the ace races, he wasn't able to. Yeah,
100%. And when you've got no help coming, I'm not saying it's team driving, but often stablemates hand up to one of the stablemates. And when you're there by yourself, you have less cards to play in the big game.
You do. He had 2 cards to play in, of course, a race he hadn't won before. It was the Southland Oaks. Let's go back and have a look at this, because here he is on Ruby Row trying to get the lead, Michael. Just about got there, and she switched off. Now, I spoke to him today about that. He said, look, she's mentally immature. You'll see in about 600 metres, she just goes, I'm jack of this. I'm out of here. What that meant was the stablemate, Flying Alley, who had already run second in the Northern Oaks, was beautifully positioned behind RDB Mickey. And, well, we knew if you were on Ruby Row at this stage, you're in a power of pain, Michael.
Well, we were talking about cards being played. Now, by no means is this team driving. Nathan wanted to get the lead with the filly he thinks is the better of these 2 fillies. But he did attack the leader. That softens the leader up and leaves it vulnerable later to the stablemate. That wasn't why he did it, but it still happened. And that's what happens when you've got more cards. You have more ways to win the race. Thought the leader was really good. I think Flying Alley is a horse who none of us realised how good she is, because she's not as glamorous or as sexy or even as big as the stablemate or some of the other names. And I think we saw that the little filly who did such a great job back on the inside probably at this stage is better over the shorter trips than this, because they've gone 3:19.9 here. They've broken a 2-minute mile rate. But that pressure we saw about a minute and 20 seconds ago left the leader vulnerable to this.
After RDP Mickey, she was second in the Northern Oaks, but she'll win the Southern Oaks. Flying Ellie wins the prize from RDP Mickey.
And the other cool thing about that, Michael, was Matthew driving for Nathan. Nathan hadn't previously won a Neville Stud Southland Oaks. There's only one big race on the calendar down there that N. Williamson hasn't won as a trainer now, Michael, and that's a kindergarten stakes. So he's swept all of Southland's major trophies, and to have his brother win that one for him was pretty cool.
It was, and a lovely drive. Admittedly, once they settled that way, it was always going to be, shall we say, a one-dimensional race for Matty. But you need to be patient, and you need to get those things get those things right, because he could have pulled out earlier, Greg, and maybe she wouldn't have found the line so good. She's a pretty good filly. I think the stablemate's more talented, but she turns up. She's very race and repeat, and she's had an awfully good last month, Gregory. So, yep, she's a horse who's embellishing herself. And again, it's a crop where there's some good horses, but there's not a lot of horses in this 3-year-old filly's crop you'd be scared of. Not many horses you'd say, not like Millwood Nike last year, where you would say, well, we can go to that, but we're not going to beat this. So, yeah, I think she could turn up and be a factor in any 3-year-old race between now and December 31st.
Michael, she's out of Hi-Ho Silver Lining, who Tony Hurley trained to win about 7 races. It's a family of Sharp and Telford, so there's a bit of depth there too. Yeah,
look, good family. And it's been one of those families that produces a lot of racehorses. When you go through Nathan's stable, he's got a lot of well-bred horses. He's got guys like Mick Boots who are now involved. You need to have a lot of ability for people in Australia to want to have their horse trained in Invercargill. Because, Greg, when people in Australia talk about going on holiday, they don't talk about going to Invercargill. So you need to be doing something right, and good communications and training these horses right. I said on the show a couple of years ago, I think Nathan has the ability to one day be the top trainer in the country. Not saying he will be, but he does have that ability, because Mark and Barry are, older. They're in probably the last 20 years of their career, or however long that's going to be. And Nathan could be around for an awfully long time. That's no disrespect to Steve Telfer and the Duns and the legacy they have there with Diamond Racing. But it'd be hard to do from Invercargill.
Does he have to move?
I don't think anybody would want to move. I've seen lots of horse trainers move to different cities to try and embellish their careers, and it didn't work, and all they end up doing is spending a truckload of money. Yep. If he's happy living in Invercargill, there's no reason he can't say to himself and his wife, which is most important, let's have a mini barn on somebody's property we trust, like a Regan Todd or somebody like that, up in Canterbury. And now we heard today, NZ Bloodstock Air Freight's come out saying we're going to have direct flights from Christchurch to Sydney. That started today. So the South Island isn't this thing which is miles away. Once you're in Christchurch, you're now 3.5 hours, Greg, from unloading in Sydney Airport, and that changes a lot of stuff. So, yeah, I think Nathan is only just starting to make the impact he'll make on the industry in this country.
Yep, agree with you there. Let's go to the Country Cups final, which was won by this horse, Beach Flyby. Didn't step as quickly as he normally does, but he hit his hobbles pretty quickly. We'll hear from Amanda Telfer about that shortly, but he wins another Country Cup, and he did it in grand style, beating Charlie Brown.
Clear, got away. It's been a big week for Steve and Amanda Telfer, and it's going to be Beach Flyby again. Beach Flyby first, second goes to Charlie Brown. Da Vinci was flying along the passing lane.
Well, Beach Flyby grabs another Country Cup.
Yeah, he's getting to be pretty good at that. I actually wasn't frightened when he had that little bubble, because if you give him his head, he'll just gallop into them. So as you've seen, Timmy gave him his head and he galloped into him nicely. So he's a pretty foolproof pacer.
Look, he's won nearly half his starts now, and when he gets to the front, he's incredibly hard to get past, because he has a high cruising speed.
Yeah, he just likes to do his own thing. He likes to just bowl around in front. Saying that, he's nice to come off a helmet if he's close and handy. Back in the field, I'm not so sure, but being up near the front, he's very good.
All right, you've now got 2 effectively qualified for the Hydroflow Country Cups final, Alta Meteor being the other. Are they both going there, and can you split them at the moment? Are you still in favour of Meteor?
Yeah, I'd still have to go Meteor, and yeah, they're both heading that way. I think we're going to line Alta Meteor up at Rangiora on Sunday, and the other bloke will just go straight into the Country Cup final.
And how's he been since he's been beaten Ahoka Connor, who of course took out last year's Supremacy?
Yeah, look, he's been great. We've just gave him a little freshen up and been ticking him along, and the boys reckon he's working super. So yeah, very happy with him.
And once they go through that, that's it for them, spell time?
Yeah, they'll go to the paddock then and come back for the end of the season.
40 metres behind for Alta Meteor on Sunday. We'll talk later about that. But Beach Flyby, who Steve Telfer came on the radio with you and I, Michael, a couple of years ago now and said he was the one to follow out of their barn. He probably didn't think he would be a three-time Country Cups winner like he is now, and going forward to that $110,000 final on the 10th of May, he's a bona fide chance in it.
I love the series. I think it's one of the best things that's come out of the architect situation from harness racing New Zealand a couple of years ago. I think it works. I think it brings so many horses together. I'm disappointed by the field size for the Northern final this week. I can't understand that for the life of me. But in the South Island, it works beautifully. And I love it, Greg. I think these horses are getting a grounding to become open class horses and or New Zealand Cup horses, because they're learning how to handle standing starts. They're learning how to handle tough racing, and they're learning that they need to get up and in against the marker pens, because it's bloody hard when everybody's on the go and these good races, Greg, to come wide. And that's what you need to be an open class horse. So it's the perfect laboratory and school for our future open class horses, whereas 2- and 3-year-old racing's where the best horses come from, but a lot of them go and handle standing starts, and they can't handle them, and some of them never handle them. So I love the whole idea of the series. I think Steve Telfer, I'm not sure if he does the planning for the Southern team, so I'd only be lying if I said it was actually him, but whoever does do the planning for Team Telfer have handled these horses beautifully. When you look at Ahoka Connor and all these other horses, and Ultra Wise guys gone down south in the past, Greg, I think they have played the system superbly for the horses they have, and then Tim Williams, usually Tim, puts them in the right place for these races, Greg. I think it's a really good example of how to place your horses.
Yep, I agree, and Amanda's a big part of that. Charlie Brown was good. Da Vinci was excellent late. One change, not bad either. Beautiful segue, Michael, into our first break. Here's Bring On The Muscle, a 3-year-old taking on the older horses from a stance, taking a bit of making this horse, but Clark Barron knows when he's got a good one, driven by Brent Barclay. He was too good at ridiculous double-figure odds, winning on Sunday.
Very good. Bring On The Muscle. Bring On The Muscle has beaten Julie Jacket.
Second edition of the Nullarbor. Here's the winner, Michael, Catch a Wave, the Miracle Mile winner, coming wide at Gloucester Park's never a whole lot of fun, but he's a very good horse.
He's a very talented horse. He's an odd horse. Kate made the decision, which was ultimately the race-winning decision. This is Kate Gath, to not go forward at the start. And of course, when you had a horse who's gone forward and won a Miracle Mile, and you choose not to use that gift, you can make a fool of yourself. But Kate got this inch perfect. Went back, settled in, then there was a 3-wide train. She got on the back of the right horse. I'm not sure, Gregory, that he loves the rough and tumble. But I think in mile races, I spoke to Andy Gath about this on Sydney Radio on Monday. In mile races and short distance, they need to go forward. As we saw when he came from last to run an unlucky second to act now in the Victoria Cup, when they get up in distance, they're probably better just driving them cold, as much as that can make you beatable and look unlucky sometimes. So he might be a horse who tries 2 different things, Gregory, in his life, depending on the distance of the races. But Andy and Kate are very popular people. The Pauline Matthews story and everything behind this horse is incredibly cool. Where he ends up, I have no idea. I don't know what's going to happen to this horse. We'll get another look at him on Friday night, the Fremantle Cup, which has a similar type of field. He's drawn barrier 7. Again, he'll go back. Again, it goes to a longer distance. It goes to 2,900 metres. So it's funny, Greg. I thought it was a really good race, but when Minstrel, who seemed to have left New Zealand, I think on one of Captain Cook's ships about 200 years ago, is how it feels. When you see him running second, you go, what does all this mean? And I don't know.
Yep, he's still part owned by the Butts out at Woodend Beach too, Minstrel. So he's done a great job. He's won a lot of money.
He's done a super job. And don't get me wrong, some horses just love Gloucester Park. They love that style of race.
Captain Cook's ship. I really like that. That's
it feels like a bloody long time ago since I last saw Minstrel at Addington. But then again, Greg, it's been a tough couple of years.
It has been. Laverajo was really good in that. Might be one to follow out of that race. Speaking of Australia, let's continue on with Garrards and go and have a look at this horse. You'd almost swear this was a Stonewall program. Not in the colours of Stonewall, but Artie's Express. We know how talented she was here. They don't do this very often though, Michael. 148.9, Sibelia Stakes. Jack Trainer now trains and drives. Oliver Bubbles, Promised Land, Manhattan, Wide Out. Braveview Kelly, it sounds like an expat Kiwis race, and it nearly was, but she couldn't have gone any better.
148.9, almost unheard of for a Menangle debutante, particularly a New Zealand trained Menangle debutante, because so often, Greg, our horses really struggle first time at Menangle. The New Zealand horses just don't like the place because we're not used to burning those lungs and those big rear muscles getting full of lactic acid and still getting to the top of the straight at Menangle and going, yep, this is cool, I'm really enjoying this. It doesn't happen very often. That would be as good as any New Zealand debutante's ever gone at Menangle. And that includes Adore Me, who got beaten when she went to Menangle for her first run by a horse no one ever heard of again. She's obviously a very good horse. There's a lot of good horses in that race, like the Manhattans and the Braveview Kellys. They're lovely,
something
lovely
similar,
mares.
didn't she, when her first run? I think Artie's Express was probably more impressive, but she basically replicated that. She went about a similar time first up. And you're right, that's a rarity, very much
But she
so.
did it. I don't think she won quite as well as that.
No,
like
she
sat
really
parked,
was.
She sat parked and won and spanked them.
Spanked
I watch
them, yep.
all Menangle racing every
I know.
Saturday night.
I know you do.
And that's as good
As
as
go.
I've seen in New Zealand go on debut there.
Yeah.
Jack Trainer's very good at this. He's very good with these mares. Go back to Stylish Memphis and then obviously Braveview Kelly and Manhattan. He's very good at getting this stuff right. And she could have a lot of fun at Menangle. I'm not sure how long she'll hold together. The ladyship's on there in a couple of weeks. I still feel slightly weird about the fact she was taken off Stonewall Stud's team because I think they did a hell of a job. Admittedly, maybe they would have had to send it to someone like Jack as well. I don't know the answer to that. But I think she'll win the ladyship if she performs to that level. Whether she is able to handle the rigours, Gregory, of racing at Menangle, not week in, week out, because she won't be tried week in, week out, but whether she'll handle that with her legs for too long, I don't know.
Well, we'll find out in a couple of weeks' time. She'll be a great chance to take that Group 1 out.
On then, Greg, too, by the way, of course, we better say farewell, goodbye, to All-American Lover, her stablemate, her ex-stablemate, who was retired. She got her Group 1. She got two of them in the end.
Yep.
She was retired last week, and she'll be worth a stack as a broodmare too. And
Queen of
she
Hearts
was a horse.
breeders. Yep.
Yep, they did a super job with her.
Yep, they certainly did that. Right, let's get into the Alexandra Park preview. Big night there, Friday night. It is the Dawson Harford and Partners Tailor Mile. Here is Merlin winning. Now, he's out wide on the track this occasion, Michael, winning the race by grins. He's inside second row this week. This is an intriguing mile at Alexandra Park.
Good word, really good word to describe it. This is one of those races where Merlin could win because he's won 3 on the bounce, and you go, of course he won. He's better than these horses, which may well be true. Or Don't Stop Dreaming can win, and you can say, oh, well, yeah, he got a better draw than Merlin because he's 3 on the second line following at Kango. Or Sooner the Better can slide across the front of the field, Greg, and lead. And he might beat them, and you go, oh, well, no one ever wins the Tailor Mile from the second line. It's a race where at the 800 metres, you might have half the field can't win. But, and here's the but part, if Kango gets involved, and sooner the better gets involved, and more unlikely Old Town Road goes forward or the Republican Party kicks up, Greg, the whole complexion of the race could change. And then all of a sudden Merlin's getting a split at the 200 and go straight past him. I have no idea what's going to happen in this race. If I had to pick a horse to bet, I would probably back Don't Stop Dreaming, only because I think it may get in front of Merlin at the start, but it did that last time and Merlin was too good for it. Intriguing race, as you said. It's going to be a ripper. I just can't bring myself to back Merlin, Greg, because I've seen so many Tailor Miles, and there's been a couple, Alert Motoring, 25 years ago, one at Stormy down the outside. Akuta did the same thing last year, but it doesn't happen very often. No. So, good race. I don't have a betting opinion yet, do you?
Yeah, I like Don't Stop Dreaming, but he's about $4, $4.20, somewhere around there. Merlin's about, did I see $5.50 for him? It's at tab.co.nz if you want to have a look at that. But he's inside second row.
He took money straight away.
Yes, he did. He was $5.50 into $4.
And so did Self Assured, who was barrier 2, who...
The old Self Assured would jump straight to the front and probably win that race, but we both know that that's probably not going to happen now. Jollymont has a new driver. Todd Mitchell's picked up the drive for this series of races, which is a good thing, and he's developing into a pretty smart horse too. Better Eclipse has had no luck with the draw. Speak the Truth follows out Self Assured, so very good race, Michael. Can't wait for that one. I reckon
it's as good a punting race for harness racing as I've seen in Australasia this year. And I've been to most of the big ones. It's a ripper of a punting race because you could do the most detailed work ever and still get this completely wrong. Yep. And Merlin might come out and people will say, how the hell did it pay $5.50? And if it sits 3 fence and gets a gap, it probably will. In saying that, that would be a new trick for him. He's never been in that situation before. He's won from the passing lane, from the trail. Out. But he hasn't had to come 3 fence, pull out and cut across them.
Whoosh.
So, but maybe he's good enough to do it.
Yep, maybe he is. That might be the hardest race to work out what's going to happen. Here's Just Believe, winning the Tab Trot from the park position. This week, Michael comes up with the perfect barrier draw again. I know you've spoken to Greg Sugars about right-handed, no problem there. He's drawn outside Oscar Bonavina, so it's probably the most likely lead trail scenario you would think.
I don't know what everybody inside them is going to try and do, and I don't know how the Mystic Maxes of the world and the Midnight Dashes are going to get off the gate. But yes, I agree that's probably likely. Spoke to Greg, and now Greg went home for a week and worked with the team over there. He's come back Tuesday afternoon. He told me, I can't believe how good the horse looked. I've got back and it looked super. Worked him, I'm really happy. Right-handed, he said no issues. Yes, we haven't raced there. We haven't taken him to Alexandra Park, but we don't think it'll be an issue because we work him a lot that way and he's very clean-gated. He said, I want to dominate the race, be up against the marker pegs because that makes it easier for him. And Greg, in the shot you're seeing here, the 2nd, 3rd and 4th horses are all back in Australia. So you get a really big gap from where he is in that shot to the 5th horse, and you start saying to yourself, can they turn that around? And in fact, will anybody try and park him out? Because, Greg, there's a richer race next week for the same horses where we'll see Muscle Mountain. He's been allowed to miss this week. There's nothing wrong with him. But he'll go to the National Trot next week. So does anybody really want to go to war with Just Believe? I don't think so.
No, I don't think so either. And next week will be a terrific contest, and then we can just hope that Just Believe wants to stick around to the Rowe Cup. What's your gut feel on that, Michael? Do you think he will?
Why not? I mean,
why wouldn't you? Yeah.
How many 150 or whatever it is, $200,000 races do they have floating around in Victoria?
No.
The horse is happy here. He's got a mate in Josh Dickey who can train the thing probably for free, I'm picking. And it just goes round in circles and eats, and Greg can come back and drive it in a couple of races. His job is to be a racehorse.
Yeah, it is.
And you're in no hurry to be taking him back to Victoria to not be a racehorse. So I would absolutely stick around with him if I was them, and he's the perfect horse for it. And to be honest, Greg, if he tells him up in the National Trot, a couple of them might say, I've had enough of this,
I'm out.
I'm going home. He might go around, I'm not saying this is going to happen, he might go around $1.25 in the Rowe Cup.
Well, he's $1.25 this week, so it's probably good money, Michael, if he does go round in that. Michael, the Group 2 race for the 2-year-old fillies, named after one of our great mares, Delightful Lady. You're the one that I want, has made it 2 from 2. Will she be 3 from 3?
I think so. Two of the other key runners are drawn outside her again. I thought Sandra D was really good last week running second. In fact, as good as the winner. But I think the winner is a little bit inexperienced. I know that sounds weird because she's had the same amount of starts, but she looks like she's still learning how to use her body properly. So she's top pick for me in this crop at the moment, but Sandra D was really good. So wouldn't be surprised to see that change, but the favourite has the better of the draws.
Yep, certainly. $1.55 the price about the one that I want. I'm Sandra D. We've already talked about how these horses got named. $4, one and only the third of the Barry Purdon Scott Phelan team at $7. Let's have a look at Paramount Kiwi. Interesting race this, Michael. He showed us at 2 how good he was. He didn't get there by much here. Princess Sadie, who's against him this week, drawn to his outside in the Matthew Williamson colours there, the old Dick Prendergast colours. Wide out Empire City. Very, very good late in the piece, bouncing beyond there too. So this is the key lead-up race for the NZB Harness Million 3-year-old Trotters final. Paramount Kiwi's $1.65, Princess Sadie $3.50. If the draw was different, maybe $5.50 bouncing beyond. How do you see race 4 unfolding Friday?
I don't see a lot of pressure. I think Paramount Kiwi will lead again, and it's over 2,200 metres. And they have another trot next week, and they still have an Oaks to come and a Derby to come. So if it leads, and I spoke to Matthew White after it won last week, and he said, look, my horse will improve. So while they got close, my horse will improve because he had a setback a month ago. So you put it in front, Greg, and then what happens? Does the other Matthew Williamson, come north and pressure? Probably not. I mean, do you really want to be getting stuck into the leader at Alexandra Park sitting parked? And then you say probably the only other winning chance is bouncing beyond, because I haven't seen the Budlet's horse. I haven't seen it come north yet. I don't know how it's going, so it's pretty good as well. But if you say Alexandra Park's a hard place to come to, then you say out of the top 3 last week, Bouncing Beyond didn't go good enough, but it went okay, so it could win if the other 2 go to war. But the most likely scenario here is Paramount Kiwi leads, goes around, trots home in 57 and probably wins, Greg, because I think it'll improve on last week, but I also think last week showed us it won't dominate this crop. Empire City was really good. Princess Sadie very clearly can win if it has any luck, and that might change at the start. It might get across.
Well, she's very quick, very, very quick out. Now, what you said then about the 2,200 interests me because she might not be the strongest the further they go, Princess Sadie, but I reckon she could get him at the start and then probably take the trail and sit on the helmet and try your luck that way. That would be how I would see the race unfolding.
Well, as you know, with 3-year-old trotters, Greg, too, we saw 2 or 3 gallop inside the leader last week, so there could be a lot more gaps here than you would formulaically think is possible. But yeah, just one word of warning on him. I think he will improve, but to the eye, if you watched last week, you were going, oh, Princess Sadie will get him next time if they have similar draws. But I do think he'll improve quite a bit. Yeah, the battle of the Matty W's.
Yes.
This week at Alexandra Park.
Yep, two of the good guys of the game, no doubt. Let's have a look at this Northern Country Cup final. Smoke on the Water, here he is, finishing second behind Jollymont, who's in the predominantly green, with the pink cap Mark Purdon driving on this occasion. But Smoke on the Water was very brave in front. He's had a few trips, this horse. He's been around. He was at Oamaru, he's been at Cambridge, he's now at Alexandra Park. He spent a lot of his time at Addington Raceway. So he's ready for a rough and tumble 2,700 metres, I would think, Michael, and he's only off 10 metres. I think he's a big, big winning chance. Off the front, you've got Boudica, Bad Medicine. He's a Sure Thing's done a good job. Mickey Shan's back there off the 10 with him, but with it being such a small field, the Son of Art Major gives Matt Purvis a very big chance of winning the Northern final.
Well, good on Matt. Matt's got off his arse and brought this horse north, and heaps of other people who are already north haven't got off their arse and nominated. Now, I know some of them might have got sick. I get it. I know horses go out of form and it's a tricky time of year. It's getting colder. But how are there 7 horses in this race? It's 40 grand, Greg. Now, these horses aren't going to ever win derbies, and to be perfectly honest, none of them are going to win the New Zealand Cup. Their job is to go to work each week and race while they're healthy and don't have a snotty nose. So if you've got a horse who is eligible for this and it's healthy and doesn't have a snotty nose, then it should be there. Because that's the biggest stake it's probably going to race for in its life unless you go to the final for this in a couple of weeks. And that comes back to the other problem, Greg. Smaller fields this week. Cambridge is on the same week. I know Cambridge next year is going to go to Tuesdays and Alexandra Park's going to go to Friday, so this isn't a problem we're going to need to talk about too much. But when Alexandra Park has major meetings, you're just cannibalising them by putting Cambridge on a Thursday. And no better example than this race. It's just bizarre how these horses who aren't superstars are going to race for 40k and only 7 of them are going to turn up, when the same bunch of horses who didn't turn up, I'm not talking about the ones who were there, will race at Cambridge next week or even this Thursday for 15k.
Yep. Going
Good
around
on Matt
Alexandra
Purvis.
Park, $700 just for going around in it, Michael.
Yep. I hope Matt Purvis wins it because he's got off his arse and done something about it.
Yep, good on him. We're going to take another break. As we head there, though, here was one of the great Tailor Miles, won by a horse that won the Miracle Mile a couple of months earlier. His name is Spank. He was a remarkable horse, Spank. He won 21 races. He was multiple times placed. I think he had about 30 placings and close to $2 million. Turn it up to his outside. He keeps going around Queensland. He's been an outstanding horse too. But this was Spank's night, winning the 2019 Tailor Mile.
But Spankum will get 2 of the biggest prizes in Australasia over a mile, 153.4 the time.
In your home straight, in your box seat, yes it is, brought to you by our stable sponsors. Support them because they've been supporting us for the best part of 4 years. Last week we talked about the funding for the slot races at Cambridge. Just to clarify that, in year 1 Harness Race New Zealand didn't put any money in. Year 2, I think it was about 45,000, 150,000 this year. What we said last week about the Tab Trot was TAB Entain, or Entain TAB, whichever way you want to go. They did support the trot slot, and I think Harness Race New Zealand, if it goes ahead again in 12 months' time, are likely to get behind that. But that will be up to them. Let's get to David Brick. He is a big part of Queensland racing. He heads up the harness division, wants to talk to us about the Constellation Carnival. Here's what he had to say, and he's got another invite for a Kiwi. Well, it's that time of year. It is carnival time in Queensland. Well, it's pretty close, actually, and a whole lot of information coming out about racing Queensland's Constellation Carnival. David Brick's joined us once again on the box seat. The build-up to it's almost as enjoyable because you start handing out a few invites, Bricky.
Yeah, g'day, Greg. Thanks for having us again. Yeah, looking forward to it. It's good to follow the carnival over in New Zealand, but certainly from our point of view, yeah, now with the Nullarbor Run and One, there's a few feature races coming up in Sydney over the coming fortnight, but then after that, it's all roads lead to Queensland, hopefully locally and over in New Zealand as well.
$4 million in stakes, 8 Group 1s. It's incredible what's evolved over the last 3 or 4 years to get it to pretty sought after carnival now.
Yeah, well, I think we took the opportunity, particularly with the calendar change, the season change, or to a calendar year, the season. So that gave us the opportunity to really open up winter for us. Weather's obviously still pretty good here compared to most other parts of Australasia. So we took that opportunity and I guess put most of the eggs in that basket. But yeah, it's been really good so far, rewarding from the point of view in terms of talent that comes here. And yeah, we're looking to continue to build on that. And obviously the addition this year of the Protostar, the 2-year-old race has been one that we hadn't quite nailed yet. But hopefully this year with that and potentially horses from down the eastern seaboard, but again, across potentially from New Zealand attending that race as well.
Yep, that's a slot race and it's $500,000, isn't it?
Yeah, it's the richest 2-year-old race in Australasia, so which is great, and good to see a variety of slot holders involved there from across Australia, and yeah, so but certainly no, there's some interest in bringing a horse across from New Zealand, and obviously Ladbrokes has sponsored that, and they've locked away their first horse into that, but they've got another slot as well to fill.
Yes, I understand this. I have been asked to keep an eye out for anything New Zealand-wide that might be a possibility. Hey, things kick off with the Redcliffe Cup. That's a $100,000 race. They obviously have the Oaks and the Derby. That's at the end of June. And then we get right into week-to-week Albion Park and feature racing on each of the nights.
Yeah, absolutely. There's no hiding the fact that the bloke behind me is going to be the pin-up boy of the carnival, and hopefully he's looks like he's heading to Redcliffe, which is a great shot in the arm for the club there, and probably a little bit shot back to the yesteryear from an industry point of view, with potentially a horse, coming off a handicap and having to run down the front markers, and that's what he may have to do there. Maximum 20-metre back marks. He's not going to be too far off them, but around the tight twisting triangle, even though he's shown that he can come from last at the bell there already once, they'll hopefully heads there, because it'll certainly be quite a spectacle. And then, as you said, after that, heads to Albion, and looking forward to 4 great nights of racing there, which culminates with the Blacks of Fake and the Protestar on that last night.
Yep, absolutely. And we want him to go to Redcliffe too, because that means he might be coming to Addington, Bricky. That's what we want to see. Get away from his stand. We need to see him to fame here. Invites have started to flow. A couple of Kiwis already invited. I know Sunny Sister's been invited. Merlin and Sooner the Better have accepted invitations, and speaking to the connections and Scott Fell and Barry Purdon, they're 90% locked in, so they absolutely want to be there. But you've got news about another invite for us tonight.
Yeah, we've been keeping our eye on your trotters over there, and the trotters for the Great Square are a little bit interesting. Whether the 4-year-olds from a Rising Sun point of view, going through the Sydney Carnival, and then obviously Merlin's performance in the Race by Grins, a bit easier to pick the form. Whereas the 3-year-olds returning as 4-year-olds from a trotting point of view, there's not as much early in the season over here, and probably not as much over there. So we've certainly been keeping our eyes out. And Tuesday we spotted a pretty handy one go around, and so we've issued an invite to Bet and Win, and Stacey and David White have accepted the invite, so we're really great to have them head over. Obviously travel pending, but putting that aside, it would be great to have them over. He was very impressive, and I think I mentioned to you that the way he finished off that race, he put a snorkel on him. He could have kept coming after the race, it looked like.
Yeah, absolutely. He ran right through the line, and we get to see him at Addington in a fortnight's time, and all roads lead to them. There's a big group of owners involved too, Bricky, and they love a trip and they love a party, so look out for them making their way there. Anyone who wants to come to the carnival, whether they're bringing horses or not, best place to go for them?
Yeah, from a racing point of view, you reach out to Racing Queensland. I think if you're looking for the social side of things, reach out to the Creek at Albion Park. They'll be the place where the party's at. So, I think they're the 2 places to start. But by all means, if they've got any queries, just reach out to Racing Queensland. We're happy to accommodate and help out. We have got there is some stabling on course at Albion as well for any participants that are looking for that as well.
Yep, well, we've seen people take advantage of that in the past. Look, go to that website. All of the race details are there, and great time of year to get away from the cold and enjoy some terrific racing and some outstanding prize money. So we'll have an update close to the carnival, but appreciate you coming on the box seat once again, Bricky.
No worries. Appreciate the support, Greg.
Michael, I spoke to David Brick then about how this has evolved over the last 3 or 4 years. Great to hear that Bet and Win for the Whites and the connections in behind it, off the back of its brilliant performance at Addington last week, has now been invited to the Great Square. Sunny Sister's been invited to that too. So the Kiwi contingent is starting to build. Let's hope some of them can get there this year.
He's a good horse, Bet and Win. I think he's close to being in the top 10 trotters in the country already. I know that sounds ludicrous, and I'm a brutal judge on horses, particularly my trotters, because I love them. But he's a good horse, and we need him, because we've got a really big gap between our best 3 or 4 trotters and the rest of them. This carnival's been magnificent. What Queensland harness racing has done, Greg, in the last 2.5 years predominantly, because there was a bit of a lull there around COVID, is huge. Because they were in real trouble. Like, nobody was watching Queensland harness racing 5 years ago. Just nobody. They had that golden period with Blacks of Fake and Be Good Johnny, and then it just disappeared off the face of the earth, more or less. But they put money into marketing the young people. They built a new carnival with some great slot races, and they updated their television coverage really well, and they weren't scared to change things. I think it's a really nice blueprint for harness racing in this country, which is stagnated compared with market share, compared to the gallops. And that's not be scared to try some new things, which takes us back about 5 minutes on the show to the races at Cambridge. And it clearly works, Race by Grins night, so let's throw our full support behind it to make sure it keeps working, Greg. because we have a lot of things which maybe don't work quite that good. But we've spoken about two things on this show that have worked really well. Country Cups racing, really cool. Let's keep it rolling. And the Night of Champions, the race by grins, the TRB trot. Let's hammer these things home first before we start dreaming up new imaginary things which we don't know are going to work.
Yep.
And I think that's crucial. And Queensland's living proof of that. Queensland have said, let's not be scared to try some new stuff. Let's have a big, massive winter carnival and put all our eggs into that basket. And Greg, it's worked. Leap to Fame didn't come to the race by grid, so he can go to that. Now, yes, Kevin Seymour is a local. I understand it, so it was probably slightly biased. But Swayze's heading there, and he's not local. Merlin's heading there. And Bet and Win, among others, is going to head there. This carnival works much like what David Branch did at Cambridge, Greg, a different David B. Build it and they will come, because if you don't build it, they won't. So what I've learnt from Queensland and observing, and you've observed it far closer because you've been there, is double down on the stuff that works rather than dreaming up a whole bunch of new other stuff that doesn't work. We saw that last weekend with the Quokka and the Nullarbor too. The most important thing, away from getting the new funding deal done, that's the most important thing for harness racing in this country, Greg, by a mile, getting the new funding deal done. And that also means getting a new chief executive who can get that done for you. But the most important thing we can do now on a race night is make sure that Cambridge meeting doesn't disappear. So 4,500 people went to Cambridge last week. Don't go, what happened to that?
What happened to that? Yeah, very good point. While we're on Queensland, they've done something pretty special through Embracing Pacing and Gail Garrard. Here's a GoFundMe page for 4 blokes who are doing it a bit tough at the moment. Michael, Dan Costello's the photographer, Greg Elkins, Jack Butler, Dudley Warburton. They're all heavily involved in harness racing. They're going through some tough times. I know you've donated, as you can see. They've already got past 50,000. The box seater put some money in too. You know, like I've had a bit to do with some of these guys, Jack Butler in particular, with Manhattan being there last year, and we're just trying to help them out. And if you have a spare $5, donate it, and you know, these guys certainly deserve the support.
Thrilled to see Entain getting behind it.
They got right behind it.
20,000 is a lot of money. They're by far the biggest people to donate. I know everybody doesn't have money lying around the house. I respect that, Greg. But if you do back a winner and you've got $10, for these boys at least it's someone saying, hey, we care about you from over here in New Zealand. Yeah, log it. It's easy to find. Just go to those links or GoFundMe and just type in harness, it'll come up. But, you know, it's tragedy for an industry that small, Greg, to have 4 people struck down by illness. So good luck, fellas.
Yep.
Hoping for some good stuff for you. But yes, if you are a stud or you are a breeding operation or you've got plenty of money or you're watching this show and you just don't have to worry about money anymore because you've got a bit of coin, I would ask you to help those guys out, because one day that could be your family.
Yep, absolutely, it could be, and we wish them all the very best. Addington race alongside Alexandra Park on Friday night. Here's Kalua Flyby. This was in the Southern Belle final, won by stablemate Sweet Diamond. That's her wide out with the shadow roll, one from the outside. She hit the line pretty strongly here. She comes up with the outside draw this week in the Woodlands First Autumn Mares Sprint. It's a good stake, $20,000. She starts from the outside, but she's only got 5 rivals. I reckon she'll take some beating in that. Sweet Diamond bolted in here, but it was an excellent time. They went about 53. I think she'll go close in that race. The next race I want to preview, 2 horses come out of it that you need to have a look at. First of those, Sunny Sister. Well, we know her talent. She's an Oaks and Derby winner, Michael. She comes to the Tyre General About Now Fillies handicap. She does start off 40 metres. This won't be easy. And second to that, Michael, is John Dunn's driving in Auckland this week, so he won't be driving this mare.
No, and 40 metres is an awfully long way. I'm thrilled About Now has a race named after her. She wasn't a glamour girl About Now, but God, she was a wonderful old trotter about 40 years ago. I love this mare. I think, like Bet and Win, she is an absolute stone-cold moral to end up in open class, even though her gait isn't actually as clean as his. But, Gregory, you can leave me out of 40 metre marks this week. There's one with her in this race, and there's another one coming up at Rangiora. They have a barn burner of a big cup there on Sunday, and Poor old Meteor was off a 40 metre handicap there too. And Gregory, if you start backing horses off 40 metre handicaps, you and I both know how it ends.
We do. I Dream of Jeannie won this race last year, Michael. She's 10 metres in front of Sunny's sister. Here she is in the trail. Got the business done. Perigrine in front. Gavin Smith drove on this occasion. I'm showing you this from last year because this is what she can do, Michael. She's alongside Eurostyle, who I've got a lot of time for too. However, they're both off 30 metres. Off the 10, you got Martha Stewart, the Bloss and Miss Alyssa. They're all handy enough mares. And off the front, Muscle Sass is starting to get it together. Holly Highlander, George Elliott, those types of horses. So excellent race. The Tyre General about now, fillies and mares handicap trot, part of Friday night's 10 race card at Addington. You mentioned Sunday. Gee, it's a good field. A lot of depth to the Cup there. Let's have a look at Franco Indy last week at Addington, coming from last, low flying in front. Race rival this week too, Mighty Louie. This is a terrific field, Michael.
Isn't it great? It's an embodiment of this whole Country Cup's ethos. The one thing I would say, Gregory, I find Rangiora really tricky for horses coming wide. So often in a standing start, you begin quickly and put 4 behind you. You're a totally different animal than if you don't begin quickly and you've got 10 in front of you. Because I just think it's a bloody hard place to come wide unless you're a totally dominant horse. And the reason I'm mentioning that is, you mentioned it earlier, 110,000 the final for this race. I'm not sure how many Greg are going to be hooting around them from out the back to sit parked and give themselves a headache with 110k just around the corner. One horse who might is Pin Seeker, because you were explaining to me during the commercial break, Pin Seeker needs to run top 2 to get into the Cup's final or something like that.
Yeah, that's correct.
Therefore, motivation may be higher for Pin Seeker, even though it's found itself back in the handicaps very quickly.
Yeah, it has, but Johnny Cox, very good horseman, as we know. What is Pin Seeker? It's off 20 metres. It's only 2 off 10. He's a Sport and Tack McLeod, and then the rest of them are further behind. I think Johnny will put most of those behind him with any luck, and therefore it'll take all sorts of beating. Just quickly, round the country, 9 races Cambridge on Thursday night, 5:19 the start time there. Friday night we've covered Auckland and Addington. Waireo race at Winton, 12:35. They've got a 9 race card and 10 races at Rangiora on Sunday. Michael, that wraps up a very busy show. Covered plenty of bases there. Looking forward to all of the action around New Zealand. But for you and I, 7 days' time, we'll catch everyone then. The Box Seat, brought to you by our stable of sponsors. Harness Link, for all your worldwide harness racing coverage. Brecken Farms, New Zealand Bloodstock Standardbred. IRT, it's your horse and our passion. Garrard's Horse and Hound. Lincoln Farms, Renwick Farms, Harness Racing New Zealand. The clubs, Auckland, Cambridge, Addington and Ashburton, and the TAB.